Hello, my name is Natalya Gallo, and I'm a postdoctoral researcher at the Scripps Institution of Oceanography. Today, I want to talk to you about why the ocean is losing oxygen and what you can do about it. But first, let's pause and look at this beautiful photograph of a healthy marine ecosystem. Now, take a deep inhale. What's happening in your body is that your bloodstream is now carrying new oxygen to all the cells in your body, fueling them and allowing them to perform their essential functions that keep you healthy. But like you, every animal in this photograph is also breathing, though the mechanisms look a bit different from the way in which we breathe. Every fish, coral, and anemone that you see here is extracting a dissolved form of oxygen from the surrounding seawater. And just like us, every animal in this picture has certain oxygen requirements that must be met so that it can be healthy and live in this habitat. Beyond the animals you can see with the naked eye, if we took a drop of seawater and put it under a microscope, we would see millions of microscopic organisms, phytoplankton and bacteria. The vast majority of all of these microscopic organisms also need oxygen to thrive and perform their roles in the ecosystem. As you can see, the ocean is filled with organisms that need oxygen. But what I'm here to talk with you about today is that the ocean is losing oxygen in a process known as ocean deoxygenation. It's a bit of a mouthful, but take a moment to pronounce it with me so that you can feel confident about saying it. Deoxygenation. Ocean deoxygenation. This just means a decline in the oxygen content of oceanic and coastal waters. This decline is primarily driven by eutrophication, which is otherwise known as excessive nutrient inputs into waterways, as well as climate change. In this map, you can see colored in red and blue all areas in the ocean where conditions are already hypoxic. Hypoxic conditions mean that oxygen levels are low enough that they are already stressful to most animals. All of the red sites show coastal hypoxic areas, which have increased rapidly in number and are sometimes referred to as dead zones because they are often associated with mortality events of fish and other hypoxia-sensitive animals. In blue, you can see the regions of the ocean which already have hypoxic conditions at certain depths of the water column. These regions are called oxygen minimum zones and are expanding due to climate change. Ocean deoxygenation can be thought of as an oxygen supply and demand mismatch. Eutrophication and warming from climate change are decreasing the supply of oxygen while increasing the demand for oxygen in the marine environment. On the next slide, we'll talk a little bit more about the actual mechanisms. The ocean is a critical heat sink and has absorbed approximately 93% of the excess heat in our climate system from the burning of fossil fuels. When the ocean warms, however, the oxygen content of the ocean also decreases. This is due to a few factors. First, solubility. Warmer water holds less oxygen, so as ocean temperatures warm around the world, the ocean loses its ability to hold as much oxygen. You can think of this kind of like outgassing of a hot soda. Oxygen also enters the ocean from the air through mixing at the surface of the ocean. As surface waters become warmer with climate change, they become more stratified, thus reducing how much oxygen is actually getting mixed into the water. Ocean warming also leads to changes in the circulation of the ocean. As the ocean becomes more sluggish, deeper waters are supplied with less oxygen. Meanwhile, as temperatures warm, oxygen demand by marine organisms and bacteria increases. In coastal areas, these warming-driven changes in oxygen are further exacerbated by excess nutrients that enter waterways, causing algal blooms that lead to low oxygen events as they decompose. Together, solubility changes, decreased mixing, changes in circulation, increased respiration, and excess nutrients all contribute to the loss of oxygen in the global ocean and coastal zones. Ocean deoxygenation is a topic that has only recently received a lot of attention. When I first started out with my PhD at Scripps, very few people who I spoke with had even heard about ocean deoxygenation. This cartoon from Baz Kohler captures well my experience speaking about ocean deoxygenation to the public and to policymakers. Here, the fish are fleeing due to deoxygenation, but the customs official says he has never heard of that nation. The last few years have seen a huge expansion in the research on ocean deoxygenation, as well as compilations of knowledge from scientists. Just last year, the International Union for Conservation of Nature published a giant report bringing together the state of the science on ocean deoxygenation. Ocean deoxygenation is now a very active area of research, and scientists all around the world are working to understand how much oxygen loss has already occurred, what the ecosystem impacts of oxygen loss are, how much oxygen loss is projected for the future under different climate scenarios, and how oxygen loss interacts with other ocean stressors that you've been hearing about today. Briefly, what we already know is that ocean oxygen loss is a substantial problem. Using long-term measurements of ocean oxygen taken from all around the world, scientists have found that since approximately 1950, the ocean has lost about 2% of its oxygen. In the figure on the left, in red, you can see all of the areas where oxygen loss has occurred, and areas in darker red have experienced larger losses than the global mean. Climate models project more rapid oxygen loss in this century, and by 2100, global oxygen levels are expected to decrease on average by 3 to 4%. In the figure on the right, you can see climate model projections for oxygen loss for the most recent climate model comparison. Oxygen declines throughout the 21st century, but less oxygen loss occurs under the most ambitious climate policy scenarios, which you can see here in the purple and the blue lines, compared to the business as usual scenario, which you can see with the red line. While 3 to 4% decrease may not seem so large, small changes in oxygen matter, and certain regions experience much greater oxygen losses. In coastal areas, these climate-driven losses of oxygen are further exacerbated by increased microbial demand for oxygen due to the influx of increased nutrients and organic matter. Since nearly every organism in the ocean needs oxygen, oxygen plays a key role in structuring marine ecosystems and affects where species can live. For example, species that are very active and have high metabolic requirements, such as tuna, can only live in well-oxygenated habitats. Other species, such as this marine worm here, have evolved special adaptations that allow them to live in hypoxic environments. For this reason, hypoxic areas are not dead zones, because certain hypoxia-tolerant species can thrive in these areas. However, mortality events of hypoxia-sensitive species, such as the crabs and the fish pictured here, often occur when coastal regions experience hypoxia. The ecosystem and societal implications of ocean deoxygenation are changes in species distributions, food web changes, decreased biodiversity, impacts to fisheries, and also potential climate feedbacks. Nitrous oxide, which is a potent greenhouse gas, is actually produced in low oxygen regions of the ocean when microbes use nitrate and nitrite instead of oxygen to breathe. As I mentioned before, the field of research around ocean deoxygenation is rapidly growing. My own research has examined how oxygen structures deep-sea fish communities and explored some hypoxic superstars, animals such as this cusk eel and cat shark that are LIGO-oxyphiles, or low oxygen specialists, and can thrive under oxygen conditions that are lethal to most fish. I have also used new tools such as deep-sea landers and worked with long-term data sets like the Calcoffee Ecosystem Monitoring Program to study species vulnerability to oxygen loss across both short and long time scales. This research contributes to understanding of the ecosystem and fisheries impacts of oxygen loss and how we can best manage these changes. I hope that you've enjoyed this presentation, but I also hope that you are listening with the intent not just to learn, but also a drive to do something. So here are a few things you can do. First, be informed and share your knowledge about ocean deoxygenation. There are a few excellent new resources, such as from the UNESCO GONE group and the IUCN Ocean Deoxygenation Report that I highly recommend. Second, look for personal changes you can make to decrease your own contributions to ocean deoxygenation. These include transitioning away from fertilizer-hungry lawns, calculating and lowering your carbon footprint, and making purchasing choices that support more sustainable food production practices. But personal choices only get us so far. Sound and ambitious climate and watershed management policies are necessary to prevent and manage further ocean deoxygenation. Be active and demand ambitious policies from your representatives at the local, state, national, and international levels. Thank you for your interest and your attention, and I hope you feel empowered to make a difference.